Welcome to my channel. I'm Jhonna, and this is my learning diary and my personal diary at the same time. So, what you're about to hear is not coming from an expert. It's coming from someone who is curious, someone who observes, and someone who tries to understand things deeply before sharing them. So, if you're like me, someone who prefers listening and learning slowly, then you're in the right place. And yes, for this video, the visuals may not always match perfectly because I use free photos. Sometimes they're just there to support the story, not to be exact. So if you are very visual, feel free to search more photos on your own. But if you enjoy just listening and imagining, then stay with me. Because today, we're talking about the Asian semi-long-hair cat, also known as the Tiffany. And I want to tell you about this cat in a way that feels real. Not like a textbook, but like you're hearing about a quiet roommate that slowly becomes part of your life. So, imagine this. You are at home, working, maybe teaching online, maybe just trying to focus. And instead of a loud, demanding pet, there's this soft presence in the room. Not asking for attention, not making noise. Just there, watching you. Calm, alert, almost like it understands what you're doing. And that's the vibe of this cat. People often describe it as a bridge. And what that means is it sits in the middle of two very different personalities. On one side, you have very active, talkative cats. And on the other side, very quiet and distant ones. And this breed balances both. It's not too loud, but it's not cold either. It's not hyper, but it's not lazy. It's just steady. And that's why I call it the gentle intellectual. Because it feels like a cat that thinks before it acts. Now, when it comes to behavior, this is where things get interesting. Because unlike cats that run away when someone new enters the house, this one doesn't panic. It doesn't hide under the bed. It stays. Maybe at a distance. Maybe sitting on a chair. Just watching. Observing. Trying to understand. And if you've ever felt like that, like you don't jump into social situations, but you also don't avoid them completely, then you'll probably relate to this cat a lot. It's what people call a people cat. But not in a clingy way. It doesn't demand your attention every second. It just wants to exist in the same space as you. And honestly, that kind of presence can feel very comforting, especially if you work from home. Because imagine teaching or working, and there's a quiet companion just sitting nearby. Not interrupting, not being loud, just there, like a silent support system. And when it does communicate, it doesn't scream, it doesn't shout. It uses a soft, almost chirpy voice, like it's speaking gently instead of demanding. And that's a big deal, especially if your work depends on your voice. Because the last thing you need is a pet that competes with you while you're talking. Now let's talk about something people don't expect, which is how affectionate this cat can be. Because even though it's calm and quiet, it actually forms strong bonds with its owner. It follows you around, not in a chaotic way, but like a shadow. Always nearby, always aware of where you are. And this is where I like to call it the silent shadow. Because you won't always notice it at first. But once you do, you'll realize it's always been there. Now, for some people, that level of attachment feels comforting. But for others, it can feel a bit intense. Especially if you're someone who values a lot of alone time. Because this cat doesn't like being ignored for long periods. It doesn't handle loneliness well. And this is one of the unfiltered truths that people don't always talk about. If you're always busy, always out, or emotionally unavailable, this breed might struggle. Because it needs connection. Not constant attention, but consistent presence. And if it doesn't get that, it can become stressed or unhappy. So one solution people often suggest is having another pet, like another cat, or even a calm dog. So it doesn't feel alone when you're not around. Now, let's talk about intelligence. Because this is one of its strongest traits. This is not a passive cat that just eats and sleeps. This is a cat that learns. It observes patterns. It understands routines. And yes, it can even figure out how to open doors or solve simple problems, which can be impressive, but also a little scary if you're not ready for it. Because smart pets don't just follow rules. They question them. And if you enjoy understanding behavior, patterns, or even psychology, then having a cat like this can actually feel very interesting. because you're not just taking care of it. You're interacting with something that responds, adapts, and learns. Now, let's clear up one common misunderstanding. Grooming. Because when people hear semi-long hair, they immediately think of heavy maintenance, like brushing for hours every day. But that's not exactly true. The reality is, their fur is much easier to manage compared to more high-maintenance, long-haired cats. It doesn't tangle as easily. And usually brushing a couple of times a week is enough to keep it healthy and clean. So if you're busy, or if you don't want something too demanding, this is actually manageable. And that's why I think this breed fits a very specific type of person. Someone who wants companionship, but not chaos. Someone who values quiet connection over loud affection. Someone who doesn't need constant noise to feel less alone. And if you think about it, in a world that is already loud, already stressful, having a calm, intelligent, emotionally aware companion can feel like balance. Like something that grounds you without overwhelming you. And maybe that's why some people are drawn to this breed. Not just because of how it looks, but because of how it feels to be around it. Like you're sharing your space with something that understands silence and respects it. So now I want to ask you something, and I want you to really think about it. Not just answer quickly, but actually reflect. If you had a pet like this, one that is quiet, observant, affectionate, but not demanding, would that bring you peace? Or would you still look for something louder, something more active, something that fills the silence instead of sitting with it? What kind of presence do you actually need in your life right now, and why? Thanks for watching. If this video resonated with you, please consider hitting the subscribe button. I want to be upfront and share that I use this text-to-speech voice to tell my stories because, as a full-time ESL teacher, I have to be very careful with my vocal cords. Managing vocal nodules means I have to save my voice for my students, but I didn't want that to stop me from sharing these unfiltered thoughts with you. I'm Jhonna, and I'm currently working toward my goal of 1,000 subscribers so I can finally monetize this channel and turn this passion into a sustainable part of my future. This is my diary of solo living here in the Philippines, and your support, whether through a comment or a sub, helps me keep this channel growing. If you would like to help out even more, you can check out the Buy a Treat for My Pets link in the description. My dogs definitely appreciate the love. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss the next update. Thank you for being such an important part of this journey. I'm Jhonna, and I will see you in the next one.